All right, welcome to another bragging rights. Today I'm going to showcase my 10mm Carthaginian army. It's really focused around Second Punic Wars, specifically Hannibal's forces, but I did try to include as many units as possible that would work across the conflicts. I will have these split today by geography of the actual units themselves, as this is a mixed arms as well as mixed culture army, largely fielded of allies, subjugates, or mercenaries. So let's start with some Insubres. The Boii and the Insubres were both participants in the Punic Wars under Hannibal, so I wanted to make sure that I had some representation. So these are my Insubres. I also have Boii, which form their entire army. And we'll go over those if we ever showcase my Gallic forces. We've got a leader here, unnamed for now, but we've got a leader that goes with them. This is from Magister Militum. I really love the extra character they give their hero packs. Sometimes I'm not as much of a fan as their units, just because they're just so chunky, and all the horses are ponies, as you see here. This is a unit of medium cavalry, and I chose to give them a wide color range of shields and cloth. This is meant to show, some of the wealth that can be had through being friendly with Rome and participating in trade and local culture. And here's what these guys look like. These are a mix of Pendraken and Magister, but honestly, I think there's only a couple of Pendraken figures in each of these bases. I think it's all Magister Militum. So, on with some other things. I went with those brighter colors. I think with this army, I might prefer to bring in one of my units of Celts that are a little more muted in tone, and save these bright colors for a pure Gallic army, but we'll see. Next up, let's go with North African forces. We have some Libyan light skirmishers. These are from Pendraken. I really love these sculpts. You get two varieties with each pack. And here are some more. I have a ton more of these. I'm actually going to base some on larger bases, like kind of 80 by 30, 80 by 40 style of base, just because I think it'll look good. But these are based to be used for Age of Hannibal, Hail Caesar, To the Strongest, and Kings of War 10mm. So that's why I've kind of stuck with this standard throughout the army. You'll see that there's a couple areas where for the look or for our ease, I've changed the basing. So these are either kind of Libby Phoenician veteran spearmen, not necessarily veterans in Italy, but veterans in general, using more Greek or Hellenic influenced arms and armor. This is a unit that I believe is 100% Pendraken. Yeah, I think I can safely say this is a full Pendraken unit. I think the same for this as well. I believe this is all Pendraken as well. I do like these models. I chose to give them a royal purple so that they can also be used as a Sacred Band of Carthage, which would have been a very full-sized division, I think it might be the right word, of the Carthaginian army, unlike Sacred Band of Thebes, which would be 300 guys. Here are some Libby Phoenician, or even could be Carthage noble cav. They are kind of richly appointed again with purple or red. Purple, red, and black are really the color themes I went with North African troops. And here's a unit where I decided to base differently than my usual 40 by 40 standard. These are Libby Phoenician veteran spearmen. They do have, they're carrying the color scheme of the rest of the North Africans. but their cloth is of a much darker purple. And some of them black. I did this so that I can feel comfortable using them as just plain, citizen spearmen that have some veterancy, or spearmen like Libby Phoenician spearmen that have some level of veterancy, or I could use them if I wanted to of a larger unit of Sacred Band. So a little more flexibility. It's also just really satisfying to base up units like this of this many figures on this size base. It's my favorite unit to do at this scale is any that are based like that. Okay, go on to, and I'll buzz through these quickly. There's so many of them. These are my, more like raw or medium quality citizen spearmen of Carthage and Libby Phoenician spearmen. They are armed in a manner that kind of suggests pike, or at the very least long spear. These are all Pendraken sculpts. There's only a couple varieties of the standing spearmen. There's 2, I believe, and then there's command models as well interspersed in here. I believe it's limited to just there's a command figure, and sometimes I chose to bend that arm in different positions, and then there's a standard bearer. Really, really simple, just a variation of the other designs, although he does have a Phrygian helmet, which is a pretty cool detail I didn't notice before. I think you could easily swap this out here with some sort of banner or other insignia, and then suddenly, because of the Phrygian cap and the linothorax, you could use this guy in a successor army. Should try that out. I gave these guys mostly similar designs to how I had the last year's spearmen, but I did specifically choose to vary the color a little bit, just to represent they're less cohesively unified with the rest of the North Africans that would make up more of the regular forces of an army, and not just conscript or home guard like those spearmen might be. To round off North African, let's save the heroes for last. Let's go next to Balearic Islands, or Balearic Islands. I'm not positive how to pronounce it. I went with the dab of yellow on these just because I thought it went pretty well with the skin tone, and then gave them a traditional kind of boring cloth cloak. They are holding slingstones in those cloaks. I do like, even though these are ancient, I do kind of find these sculpts to be charming. They are monopose. They have a horrifically large base underneath them, and you can kind of see there how large and built up that is. And details, absolutely kind of comical proportions compared to Pendraken's new stuff. However, I had a couple bags of these, and like I said, I kind of like them. So these are my Numidian slingers at times, and at other times I use them at Balearics. But I always, story-wise, they are Numidian, just because that's more on lines of how I paint them, even though I may be using the unit entry for Balearic or Balearic slingers. Going into Iberia again, we have some Iberian skirmishers. Of course, Pendraken. Really love the Pendraken Carthage range and supporting Punic Wars range. I have here some Celt Iberians. These have really large scutum shaped shields. And I did represent them going through some rough ground. I put some rocks out there and a lot of extra bushes to represent their ability to deal with terrain. Because often I use these as lighter troops or javelin men into the strongest, like some of the troops who are able to go into terrain without the same sorts of penalties. And I wanted to represent that right on the base, and it was just a fun thing to do at this scale. Also wanted to have an irregular formation, not just all stood in line. Although, obviously, they were stood in line at Cannae. It showed a lot of discipline. Okay, here are some Iberian light horsemen. This unit and this one are all Pendraken from their newer ranges. These horses are really, really basic. There's really not much to them, but they work really well for light Iberian cavalry. So these first two are based on large 40 by 40s, so they would be used in a more traditional hitting flanks cavalry role. When I base them like this, I field them as light cavalry. Same goes for my infantry basing. Infantry based on 40 by 20s like this is used for lights. All right. The color palette here is actually really similar to the Carthaginian or North African color palette, in that it's black, red, but then here instead of purple and instead of white, gone with a lot of off-white, as well as skipping purple and putting in more yellow tones where I can fit them in. All right, let's get these out of here. All right, a few more areas to talk about. Next up, we'll talk about some of the Italy's specific forces. So we have here Hannibal's veteran spearmen with looted equipment. Now here I've got them all uniformly wearing red. They really should likely be wearing Gaulish garb that they acquired prior to going into the Alps. So that should be all sorts of different shades. But when I was painting them, I really wasn't thinking about that, and I didn't catch it till late. Didn't feel like redoing all of the shirts. I gave the shields a little more of a mixed look, as you know, in my headcanon, they had repainted some of them in their theme colors, which are black, red, and white, of course, with purple in some units, but these units didn't happen to get purple because, again, I thought of them as getting all of their clothing and their armor on the road. So they would have been just relying on looted and purchased things. All right, here we have some Ligurians who joined up with Hannibal around the Trebia, and they are Appuani. These Ligurians, as described in Duncan Head, and I have some other sources as well, but this is the one that I got within reach. I love this. It's an absolute great resource to have when you're working on an army like this. In here, they're described as a little stockier and mountain peoples with Celtic influence, but a lot of things were more plain. Because I think of a lot of factors. So I went with a different color scheme than what we had done on the Gauls or on the Iberians. And this is what I went with. I wanted them to be darker and plain, but still colorful within those bounds. So that's why it's more of a darker green and darker blue than you might see on the extreme highlights on the rest of the Celtic stuff. I also did up, and these are kind of dual purpose. These can either be, well, they can be three things, I guess. They can be deserters on the Carthaginian side and some of the stuff in South Italy, or they could be when any of the Italian cities have defected. This could be some of the troops that take part, like perhaps Capua, or in a Roman context, they could be, you know, the remnants after multiple decimations, or they could be troops that had been exiled before or coming back to prove their mettle. They could be also convict legion, a lot of different things with those. But that was just, you know, use of some extra models I had on the Pendraken side. It's actually Hastati, Principes, and Triarii all mixed into the same units. And then this guy right here, this is a great model. I love him. I'd love to have another one, is part of the vignette they sell for Hannibal. Hannibal's up on a horse. He's just thrown the javelin that's gone through this guy's heart. I thought that figure would be cool to mix in here, and I was right. That was a pretty fun ad. Really quickly, in many of these games you require a camp. So I created 3 camp models here. This can be used for any of my ancient forces, really. This one I use for many. I tend to use with this army the most. And then finally, we've got this one, which this is Magister Militum figures. And then in all three of these, I just took some bent card and made some tents. Pretty low effort, but fun little pieces. Put a lot more effort into the more recent camp models that I've created for my other armies, as you may have seen from my weekly updates in the past. All right, we got some Numidians. Look at these. These are Magister Militum. I like their skirmishers quite a bit. And I have painted up these so far, and I'm going to paint up more because I'd love to be able to field a dedicated Numidian army sometime with kind of some of the Romanized infantry as well. For each of these, I chose to do shield variations. They are mostly hide shields. They're absolutely fantastic in the animal selections. I just wanted a chance to paint some of these things. Most people aren't going to be trying to count the rivets on this anyway. We have here, I guess these riders would be more Libby Phoenician, but we have here Numidian elephants. This group would be used, you know, almost exclusively by my Carthage armies. I could, in a pinch, use them in a Numidian army too, I believe. Some Numidian cavalry, and we got a little shield mismatch going on. I've got 4 bases of these, and they all have different style shields, just like those 4 had different style shields for the same reasons. I do prefer the cowhide ones the best. These are a mix of manufacturers. We've got Pendraken riders for the most part, but then the command models are from Magister Militum's command pack. And I think you can tell when you really look for the differences, but I think they mix in pretty nicely, and I like the way they make the commands stand out. The Magister Militums, their sweet spot is pose variety in their command packs. I think it's really great for this time period, even though their sculpts are a little too kind of 10mm heroic sometimes. We've got 2 individual elephants. I either use them as elephant screens and like 2 of the strongest, or they can be a small group of counts as raw elephants. These are Magister Militum, and if you look at, I'm sorry, these are Pendraken. If you look at Magister Militum in comparison, Pendraken are a little taller and a lot slimmer. The Magister Militum ones are really cartoonish and chubby, and so are the riders. I think the proportions are much cleaner on Pendraken, although the proportions still are very exaggerated, as they need to be able to really paint them adequately at these scales. But I think they can mix into the same army pretty well. I don't think you can mix units of these elephants because these manufacturers just are that much different. Now, Pendraken and New Line designs, maybe you can get away with mixing those elephants, other than than stylistically. But size-wise, they should be a lot more similar. We also have obligatory, right, Numidian light cav. These models are, I believe, Old Glory. Yeah, I want to say Old Glory. I know I'm wrong. I don't recall who makes these models, actually. Apologies. It could be Old Glory, but now that I'm looking at them, I'm not so sure. It could be Pendraken, but I'm not so sure. I don't recall. Apologies. All right. Rambling, almost at an end. We have now just the command left to go through. Magister Militum command models. We got like a Juba I use sometimes, or just a Numidian contingent leader. We have a Hellenic musician. We've got a Greek musician from of course, painted as Numidian, Greek musician from the Pendraken, or sorry, the Magister Militum command range. Get Magister Militum Carthaginian command on foot. I use this for one of the Barcas usually. I got another Barca. This is a guy with a couple dogs. The dogs are Pendraken, and the guy comes from the Roman command in Magister Militum's ranges. He is, sometimes I call him George Costanza model. He is very short in comparison to a lot of the 10mm models I have, and very kind of Hobbit-esque. This is an Iberian command model. Comes from Pendraken's limited command range. They tend to only have 2 or 3 command models available for a lot of the units or even factions. This is a guy I use as a Viriatus, which may or may not be a fictional character from the Second Punic War. There likely would have been somebody leading the Lusitanian contingents. He may or may not have been named Viriatus. We have another Iberian command model, though flying Carthaginian flag and iconography. The same for a Carthaginian or Numidian commander. We've got a command model from Pendraken, and then a banner from Magister Militum. My 2 favorites, and I guess these are for last. Oh, wow, not quite last. We have a detached commander here. Detached for me, I represent with a circle. This detached commander is meant to represent often the flanking party in the Battle of Trebia. This would be leader of that party, and wow, chipped his head pretty badly. A lamp, which I have since disposed of, fell down and just came right down on my army today, and I just received a new lighting setup anyway, so good riddance. Looks like it chipped a few models. My favorite model from any of these ranges is the Hannibal from Magister Militum, and he's the guy that's just thrown a javelin and then standing across from should be a hastade, falling down dead. I really like this model. Really cool details. I like the horse on the shield. There's kind of a raised area you can easily highlight. I like the armor on his horse because that you wouldn't see that on any of the other models I have in this range, so it really helps it stand out. I think it's cool. And this is from a 3D printed range. I think it's like Hannibal versus Rome might be the name of the Kickstarter they did. And I think it's the maybe War Printer is where I've also seen these sculpts. This printed up really nicely, and it's lightweight. It's a little tall, but it feels pretty realistic. Feels a little big actually, but the guy's proportions are okay. I think they mix pretty well the other stuff I have. The shields took the Little Big Man Studios transfers that I use often. I like how those came out, and even though I was sloppy with this, it was pretty fun to paint, and I like having this guy. I am going to do more painting of figures in that range. I just need to kind of finish off some things for bolt action, and then I want to hit that range in a really hard way. I've got a ton of it printed, and I want to get through that and then request some more. All right, well, that is my full Carthaginian mixed force. It was a real pleasure to put together, and I put it on the table plenty of times. I'm always looking for more. Next up, I want to use it for 2nd edition Age of Hannibal, which I'm really excited to receive. I'd love to do a review of that game down the road. All right, well, hope you enjoyed this, and have a great week.